Hey, that's Mike Pereira. I'm Dean Blandino. Another segment of Last Call Playoff Edition. A wild card weekend. A lot to talk about. Let's start in Cincinnati. The Raiders and the Bengals. Joe Burrow scrambling out of the pocket, throws a pass. Is it a touchdown? Is it not a touchdown? A whistle blew. What happened, Mike? Watcher of the Sky says, okay, but the whistle blew. Whistle equals dead ball. How is this a TD? Making up the rules on the fly. Look, we don't have to remind Raiders fans that they've been on the wrong end of calls over the years, especially during the playoffs. Mike, were they on the wrong end of this call?
Well, I think they were. And I'll tell you why, because the ruling on the field was that Burrows had stepped out of bounds. That was the ruling on the field. Now, it was incorrect because he didn't step out of bounds, but somebody blew the whistle making that ruling. So traditionally, with the exception of fumble plays, when you rule a runner down and that ruling kills the play, you can play that through to the immediate action and give the ball to the team that recovers. But that's not the case in the rule book when it comes to a play at the sideline where the quarterback is ruled to have stepped out of bounds. Look at in every other situation other than pass fumble, the fumble down by contact, it's like the ruling kills the play. The whistle doesn't even kill the play. It's the ruling that kills the play. And there's a specific play in what's called the case book. And it's the case book that says that if the quarterback rolls out near the sideline like Burrow does, and he's ruled to have stepped out of bounds, it's over. Play's over at that point, and you can't go beyond that. But if we start, Dean, I think, trying to get into on the field or in replay, trying to get into when did the whistle blow when the pass is in the air, I'm really uncomfortable with that. And I told the league that. I said, this makes me really uncomfortable. These types of rulings are being made that one, they're not in line with the rule as it's stated or the interpretation as stated. And then two, trying to bring the whistle in play. I think it's very dangerous.
Well, it must be to make you uncomfortable, it must be pretty up there because I've seen you in some situations that other people would be uncomfortable and you clearly weren't. But that aside, I think there's two things at play. And I agree. In the offseason, the league needs to get together, officiating competition committee, and they need to figure out replay, video assist. Where is the line between the two? Where do they intersect? Because there's a couple things at play. If the ruling on the field, like you said, is that Burrow was out of bounds, then by rule in replay, that's not reviewable, right? Once the player is put out of bounds, the theory is the play is over, the officials are killing the play, and you can't put him back in bounds for purposes of a pass. The theory is that players stop. You don't know what if it's intercepted and it's returned. Where do you draw the line? That's one thing, not reviewable. But is that something that replay can assist on outside of the normal rules within replay? So that's a question. And I believe the league did say after last season going into this season that video assist could get involved. So now we're in two different worlds. Is it a replay review? Is it video assist? And then you get the erroneous whistle rule. And really, to me, that's what happened. I didn't see whether it was the referee or the line judge. I didn't see anyone ruling Joe Burrow out of bounds. You know, Mike, better than I do. If they were ruling Burrow out of bounds, they would kill the clock, go to the spot, mark the spot where he was out of bounds, and then you blow a whistle to signify the play is over. That didn't happen. None of that happened. But a whistle was blown while the ball was in the air. The announcement was that after discussion, it's a touchdown. The pool report talked about the officials recognizing a pool report didn't say anything about the ruling on the field being Burrow out of bounds. The pool report was that a whistle was blown, and after discussion, the on-field officials determined that the whistle was blown after the pass was caught. Well, that's clearly not the case. So to me, I still think, I'm not sure what happened. I know a whistle was blown, and if you apply the erroneous whistle rule on a ball that's in the air, a forward pass, then it's basically a do-over. You go back to the previous spot, replay the down. That's not what happened. They allowed the touchdown. And now everybody's kind of wondering what the heck happened.
Well, and I think if you get into this situation like you talked about, I think it was a play with Buffalo last year where they
Josh Allen, yep.
They actually allowed it to be challenged, and which is against, you can't, the replay rule is clear, you can't do that. And they reversed it after it really wasn't reviewable. And then it's like, okay, if you're going to say, well, all right, the whistle didn't blow until he caught the ball. Well, then what happens if he throws it from the 20? I mean, how far do you extend this? And I, you can say what you want in pool reports. I mean, half the time, you're in contact with replay, you're in contact with New York. You can be told what to say. But people that were there said that it was ruled that he was out of bounds. So if he's ruled, you got to suck up sometimes and admit your mistake. And then it becomes not a replay the down. It becomes Cincinnati out of bounds at that spot. So I'm really uncomfortable with this. And you make me feel uncomfortable, period. But the fact is that not much on the field makes me feel uncomfortable. But I don't want to beat it up anymore. But obviously it was handled wrong. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the end of the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. Incredible ending. I mean, I had just landed in Dallas with 1 minute to go. And we turned on the phone and watched the last minute. It was chaos. Chaos with a false start on the 4th and inches. A bunch of stuff happened. Pat McAfee, of course, with the end of the game, man, he goes, the ref bodying Dak, trying to get to the rock. Well, wild ending to a season for the Dallas Cowboys, who committed 14 penalties and who Babe Laufenberg said that 13 of them were absolutely fouls. One was kind of iffy. Dak Prescott said it's okay if the fans were throwing stuff at the officials. But in that last play, was it handled properly, Dean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from an officiating perspective, it was handled as well as possible. Look, this is end of game. There's 14 seconds on the clock when the ball is snapped. And if the play is going to end 15 yards downfield like it did with the clock running, everything has to be perfect for Dallas to get up and get another snap off. The umpire is going to be the primary ball spotter in the hurry-up offense. There are situations where the back judge, who's the deep official in the middle of the field, can help, but that would be something 20, 25 yards downfield. So the umpire has to read the play, understand that it's a run, trail the play, and get in position to spot the football. The players cannot spot the football. Coaches, they practice this. They know this. You're in training camp. They're putting this in. This is situational football. This is 2 minutes. This is hurry up. They know, ball carriers, you have to get the ball to the official. If you're outside the hash, run to the hash. The umpire will be there. If you're in the middle of the field, turn and look for the umpire coming to you. And that's what the ball carrier has to do. That's not what happened. The center ended up with the football, put the ball down. Now the umpire has to, at a minimum, touch the football. You can't have players spotting the football. The umpire tried to get through. Now you have Dak, you have players in the way. The umpire tries to get through all those bodies, puts the ball, which was about a yard further downfield than where it should have been, moves the ball back, gets out of the way. By the time they snap it and spike it, time expires. I don't know what else the officials could have done in that situation. And again, when you snap the ball from the 14 with no timeouts and you run a draw and the clock is, and you're 15 yards downfield, everything has to be perfect. And obviously it wasn't perfect.
Yeah. Two things to me. I mean, I think we've talked about this before, in a hurry up situation like that, when the umpire running downfield has to touch the ball. Don't worry about moving it back. Just touch it and let them snap the ball. And that may have made a difference there when he slid the ball back the yard, because you could see the line of scrimmage officials were on the solid line and he could see that coming downfield. So then he moved the ball back, which I think going forward, they'll probably say, don't move the ball in that situation. Secondly, it's kind of interesting because I said on the show today, I feel like I'm a bit responsible for that. I feel like that Dallas would have gotten the playoff if we hadn't moved the umpire into the offensive backfield back in 2010. Remember, we did that because we had so many umpires that were getting beat up on crossing routes and all that kind of stuff. And so we moved them. And then when we first did it, though, and I wonder if there'll be any thought about this, one play shouldn't cause it, but we put him back in his normal position inside of 2 minutes. Remember when we did that for the situation? if the situation occurred just like this. And so I look at this and say, well, maybe we were right at the time putting them back inside in 2 minutes, because I do think, he starts, that umpire, everybody said he should have got there sooner. He's starting 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped. And when Dak doesn't hand off the ball, your first step is going to be back. And then you've got to chase everybody that everybody was releasing going downfield. So, I wonder if a mechanic of putting them back inside in 2 minutes, if they might think about that to try to alleviate a situation like this. But I guess maybe I could claim some responsibility for that move I made, because I do think if he was in his old position, they'd have got the ball snapped.
Well, there you have it, Cowboys fans. It is Mike Pereira's fault, and you can get off of me for the Dez didn't catch it play. We can all move on, and you can blame Mike Pereira for changing umpire mechanics and positions. There you go.
I take all blame.
We're moving on. We're moving on. More general question related to the Bengals and Raiders. It's the Boger crew. A source, a report came out. This is from the Dentsville Historical Society. Okay. So we've got historical societies that are thinking about landmarks and other things and zoning laws in terms of these amazing historical landmarks we have around the country. And they're also commenting on the Jerome Boger playoff crew not getting another game in the postseason. And this goes back to the Raiders and the Bengals and the whistle blown during the play. Mike, will Jerome Boger's crew get another game? And if they won't, why won't they?
Well, they won't because of the Dentsville Historical Society. If they don't want Jerome Boger to work, he won't work. I mean, that's how much power that they have. Look, this is brilliant. It's brilliant. And I read in one place, it was an NFL executive that said this. Well, duh. If you work in the first round of the playoff on the field, you're done. It's one and done. So all 6 games are one and done after this. You're not going to see anybody that was on the field in another game, either in the divisions or the championships or the Super Bowl. But it does bring, the question is, and a lot of people do ask, who does go to the Super Bowl? How do officials go? Where are they? Do they work more than one game? I mean, do they work more than one game? And the answer to that question is yes. I mean, all of the Super Bowl officials will almost positively be from the division round next week. They get to work around, they get to work a game then, and then they have 2 weeks off, right? Because they have the division game, and then there's the week off before the Super Bowl. So they don't want them to have like 3 weeks off, because you do get a little rusty. So they'll all come from there, and they come from these categories. That's how you're rated at the end of the season. Categories 1 through 5. So category 1, they can actually work the Super Bowl or the championship games. Category 2 could work championships or also division or wild card. Category 3 is basically wild card and division only. Category 4 and 5. Those aren't categories that you want to be in, because those are categories that if you end up 2 years in a row in category 4 and 5 based on your performance, it could be adios time. But that's generally, Dean, how you move them along. And that's been the case really in my time and your time also.
Yeah, and there are situations, and like you said, the wild card officials aren't going to move on anyway. And I'm sure that executive knew exactly what they were saying, that, hey, if we could float it out there that they're not going to work again, maybe that'll put out a sense of accountability, even though we know they weren't going to work again even before the kickoff. But that aside, there are situations, and there have been situations where officials were slated to work Super Bowl, and because of a controversial, and I can think back to one during your time, remember the 49ers and the Giants on a field goal attempt with an eligible receiver being interfered with, that impacted playoff assignments beyond that. And there are, if it does raise to that level, if this were the divisional round and one of those officials involved in this was slated for the Super Bowl and I was the head of officiating, I'd have a decision to make, because the last thing you want to do is put an official, not just because of the other people, the official themselves are in a tough spot. Now the focus is going to be on that official. So it has happened in the past. But like you said, the divisional round, those officials will move on. The Super Bowl crew will move on from the divisional round, and the wild card officials are done for 2022, and won't work again until the next season.
You know, people say to me that everybody wants to work the Super Bowl, right? But do they make a lot of money? And the answer is no, they don't make a lot of money. They don't make a lot of money. It's not any more than their normal game fee, and it's part of a pool that gets split with everybody. But they do it for one reason, the ring. I mean, officials get rings just like players get rings. They're not as big as the ones that players get.
No, they're not.
As the one that the players get. But the proudest moment of an official is to be able to wear a Super Bowl ring and show it off to everybody on airplanes or anybody in bars. And I got one too. I got one, and it was hard to get. I didn't get it for working the Super Bowl, but I changed ring manufacturers and had them do a mock-up and have them make one for a sample. Go ahead and put my name on it. So I actually have my World Series ring. I was smarter than your average guy when it came to get a Super Bowl ring, but I've never worn it. Just so you know, I've never worn it. That's it. We're worn out from this segment of Last Call. We'll talk to you again after the division round.
For the best stories, easy to find scores, and comprehensive team pages, plus access to every live Fox Sports game and exclusive bonus cameras, download the all-new Fox Sports app now.